And we're live. Uh, hey, what's going on, everybody? I'd like to welcome you to the Audio Programmer podcast. And I'm here with a very special guest today, Mads Maretty from Audio Kinetic. And we're going to talk about
Hi.
game audio. How's it going, Mads?
It's going great. How about you?
I'm great. So,
Had a good birthday.
yeah, I did. I actually was just getting caught up. I'm actually in a new house now, just getting moved in. So just getting all settled. We went down to London yesterday, had a really nice dinner, and
Nice.
yeah, it was really nice. So where are you tuning in from today?
I'm based in Denmark actually. So I live in a city in Denmark called Aarhus. So it's the second largest city. But it's on the different, like I said, it's the opposite part of Copenhagen.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, that's where I live actually. Also, every day when I work at Audikinetic, I'm based in Europe. So much of like any work I do is like in a different time zone also.
Uh-huh.
So it works really well with like so I've done this for like 3 years now or something, and it works like flawlessly. I guess with the entire teamwork of doing this overseas and such. So
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, there's a lot of really interesting stuff to get into, and I'll just make a few announcements just to start things off.
yeah,
First of all, thanks for everybody that's joined us. If you'd like to, if you're interested in these sort of discussions and you want to continue them, be sure to join our Discord community on Discord. It's at audioprogrammer.com/community. And also, we have a special offer in collaboration with the people at Audio Kinetic, where we have a special discount code for the Wise certification program. And I will put getting certified for Wise. And thank you to the people at Audio Kinetic and Tiffany Dawson and Noor for connecting us, and also to Adam Croft as well for connecting me with the people at Audio Kinetic. Do you know Adam?
yeah. So
Yeah.
somewhat, yeah,
Yes. So Adam is big in the game audio
yeah,
community, and yeah. So Adam was actually the person that connected us initially, and so big shout out to Adam. Thank you to Tiffany for connecting me with Mass, and here we are today, and we have so many things to talk about. So I guess one thing that we can start with is just talking about a little bit about the company that you work with, Audio Kinetic. So
yeah,
Audio Kinetic is known for Wise. And can you
yeah.
just, before we get into talking about Wise, can you just tell me a little bit about your journey getting into Audio Kinetic? How did that happen, and how did you end up working with them all the way from Denmark? Because they're based in Canada, aren't they?
Yeah. They're based in Montreal, Canada. But like they have employees all like globally. But yeah, my connection to Audikinetic is really that I was like if I start out early, I was doing some television and like film production before I started on this journey. And then I kind of decided on I wanted to take some education in Copenhagen around doing something more technical, where like maybe I would get some more creative freedom in a sense,
Mm-hmm.
like which really like game development has a lot of creative freedom where you can decide how you want to do things. Um, and yeah, and then I was kind of like because I have background in music and also audio engineering and television and such. I naturally took the game things that I learned at the university and such, and applied that in audio in games. And on one of the semesters, I was doing an internship, and a friend of mine and I just boldly reached out to Audikinetic and tried to like do everything we could to like have some kind of connection to them because we could see like this is the coolest thing to be using,
Uh-huh.
and we agreed on making a game, the Wise Adventure game, a game that is a sample now in Unity. So
Wow.
so that's my path to it, and then afterwards I've done like some courses. I've done the 251 course and 301 course on their webpage,
Uh-huh.
and so many other different things, but that's my path into Autokinetic, yeah.
So you helped make the Wise. What was it again? What game was it?
The Wise Adventure game, actually. Do
Yeah,
you want me to share it just so I can
yeah, that would be great.
you can take a look?
So was
Uh,
this kind of your trial for getting into Audio Kinetic then?
um, I guess like they never really said it was gonna be trial in that sense, but we have made some games before that like looked similar to it, and they knew that we could like develop the game, like make the graphics and the programming and all those kind of different areas. But we had also have this like specific focus on audio. So I guess in that sense, my friend Jacob and we just seemed like the obvious persons to develop such a game.
Yeah.
So let me just find the Zoom call again here.
Okay.
Exit minimized window and share like this.
There we go.
So do you see the screen?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So this is the Wise launcher where we have everything in our Wise. Everything relates to your Wise projects and so on. And in that you can find the Wise Adventure game here in the samples and a Wise Adventure game. And then when you open up, it's just a basic Unity project with a lot of like using cliches and different methods that like has been used in a lot of other games, right? But just to exemplify how to do a Unity game with Wise Unity integration. So you can see, for example, here in the bottom we have like the integration from Wise, and then you can drag and drop things in and play around with that, and yeah.
Oh, really cool. So I guess one of the first questions that I think of, because I'm coming from a music tech background, so
Yeah.
I don't know very much at all about game audio. We had Rob Banton, who's a prominent game audio developer, and he talked a little bit in one of the past podcasts about what game audio actually is.
Yeah.
But I'm still kind of unclear in terms of game audio developers and what they actually do, and how the whole workflow works. So what is game audio, and can you tell us a little bit about what that involves? As if you're a game audio developer at a company, what sort of work could you expect to be doing?
Yeah. Well, I guess that like it depends a lot on the game size of the game production. Because if you have a small game production, you'd mostly have like a person doing some audio and then also integrating that into the game and hooking up to something, and like to the jack of all trades in a small game production, right? But in larger game productions, you might have like sound designers, and then you have the programmers or sound integrators that set up these hooks, and then you have these hooks are connected to some other programming things in the game, right? Mechanics and such. So you can kind of like segment these things up depending on how big the production is. But like in general, if we look at something like in comparison to, for example, film production, where you have a linear track, the thought process of doing games is completely different, because you need to account for every circumstance, right? You need to put in a sound that can be used in many different ways, and it needs to be hooked up in some logical sense to some functionality. So yeah, it's sometimes a more thorough process, or you need to do a lot of consideration on how you hook up the things and how you want the behavior to be. Whereas in film production, for example, you line up the sounds, and when you export it, you get that result, right? But you can never trust that in a game production.
Yeah. So can you tell us what Wise is? So I see that there are spatial tools. Some people have referred to Wise as middleware.
Yeah.
Can you describe, is Wise a game audio engine? Is it a set of tools? What is it exactly?
Yeah, let me share again so you can take a look at what it is.
Okay.
So what I showed you before was Unity. Unity is a game, for those that don't know it, it's a game engine. But what I've done with this Unity project is that I've hooked up Wise in it. You see here now, using some Wwise integration that I just clicked on and integrated.
Mm-hmm.
And then what you get is you get a Wwise project like this.
Okay.
Let's just maximize this actually. And in here you can see you have a lot of different settings, but this environment is separate from the Unity project here. So you don't have to know a lot about like game development itself or coding the same way. You just need to be able to work in your own environment and exploit the things that it, like work with the waveforms as you know it as a sound designer and such. At least for this, like for the Wwise authoring part here.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So
So for the middleware thing also, the middleware refers to that it's a separate unit like this one, and you can do a lot of advanced things with this. And this is like Wwise is one of the most advanced sound engines you can get, which is also why it might seem a bit complicated when you look at it. But the thing is that like the level of complicated also you can't really always have a lot of features and a lot of possibilities if you don't want it to be complicated. So in a sense, you need at least with Wwise to educate yourself up to a level where you can use all these things, and which is one of the reasons that we gave out, like we have this education certificate discount there, because like we focus also a lot on education, like so you can actually know what you can use the authoring for and such.
So what I'm hearing from you is that you can use a game engine like Unreal or Unity, and then you hook up Wwise to handle all of your audio events. Is that right?
Yeah.
So
exactly.
So basically, you have two separate apps that are open for people that maybe listening to the audio podcast and not be able to see this. That you have the Unity or Unreal that's handling the actual visuals, and then this is connecting to your what's happening with your audio with Wwise. So does this? So one question that I have is, are you doing more like production than development? Is that would that be an accurate way of describing this, or is there scripting or development that's involved with Wwise as well?
There's not per se any like the programming or scripting in itself with Wwise, unless you like need some specific features. Like you can use something called WAPI, that is the Wwise authoring API, where you can like write a script that does some cool feature for like importing stuff into Wwise and such. But in that sense, you don't need to necessarily do any programming in there.
Okay.
And when you set that thing with the events, like so if you look at my screen, for example, and you can see go to in the Project Explorer, I'll just say it out loud so everybody in the podcast can follow as well. In the Project Explorer, go to events. You can see these events are like the thing you call from the game. And so the audio thing here is like our collection of all audio. And there's events is like the things we need to call for certain actions and so on. And then we package them into sound banks. And you can see here in the Unity project as well that we got events here, and we got like all the same things. Let's find the same thing here.
Yeah.
We got the same events here that we can drag and drop into some object. So it's fairly easy to connect these things once you've set up your Wwise project.
I see.
Even though it's a separate thing, it's a separate authoring.
I see. So basically, you have a list of audio sounds and events that you want to connect to things that are happening in the game, and that you were saying that it uses these things called hooks to essentially connect these two things. Is that right? So can
I don't think the terminology is correct with like saying hooks. It's just it's not sometimes the easiest way to just describe it, because it's kind of a hook you set up, but yeah. The great thing about this, I think, is that like in the old days when you had to play some sounds, or when you also previously when using Wwise in some years ago, right, you didn't have the same possibilities of just like dragging, dropping things in and like making a cube here, for example, and then making some Wwise, like some easy if I just drag over an event here, you can see that I get like a component here that I can just pick the event in here, like it's easy, it's selectable things that is not. It's not like it doesn't require any programming. It's a set of programming to just put Wise into a game. And I think that allows everyone to use like like utilize audio better with these kind of integrations. Yeah.
Yeah. So wow. So that's really interesting. So would this be what if you were called a game audio programmer at
Yeah.
a game studio?
Yeah.
Is this what you would be expected to know about? As a game audio programmer, is this what you would be doing?
If you were a game audio programmer, you would
Yeah.
probably, for example, I'd say you probably set up the hooks in the game. Like if maybe like these components, you can drag and drop things. Like if you need to drag and drop things into a game like that satisfies some like integration methods for many things like dragging in an ambience because it just needs to play right. But if when you need to set up things with like a footsteps that is being triggered right when you walk, sometimes you need something more than just dragging and dropping things in. Maybe you need a script that like where you can like call these events from, and for like an audio programmer could then make something called we call it Wise types, where you get this toggle just like this one and put it in a script, and then you like instead of having like and then you can just like put this toggle inside another script like called weapon, so it's in the sound is integrated into the script functionality itself. So an audio programmer, game audio programmer will probably set up these hooks and make sure these things work, whereas the sound designer could fully just focus on the sound designy things of the soundscape and such.
Yeah. So the sound is so tell me if I'm wrong here. So the
Yeah.
sound designer creates the sounds, designs the sounds,
Yeah.
puts them into Wise, and
Yeah.
then the game audio programmer is responsible for taking those sounds and associating those with the visual objects.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. Generally speaking, yeah. But of course, there's like often times where you like audio programmers go all the way to like even integrating the sounds into Wise, and the other way also where sound designers like use some of their use some techniques to put it directly into the game. So the border itself is not that clear, but yeah, it's general. That's how I would describe and the difference between a sound designer, maybe an game audio programmer.
Okay. So can you describe a little bit more? Because a lot of job descriptions that I see require game audio developers to know about Unity, of course, which we now know is the visual aspect of making the game. You have some sort of game like visual game engine, and then you have Wise, which would be the audio side.
Yeah.
But then you also have game audio developers. Another requirement is knowing C++, of course. So can you just explain where that comes into the fold? So sound designer puts some sounds into your Wise folder, into your content folder. Now you have a game audio programmer that's taking those sounds, they're associating that with the visual assets. So where does a game audio developer need to know C++ and that side of things from?
Well, like if you're using something like Unity, for example, like that, which is like mainly a C# instead. Well, then, like in many ways, you would encounter doing some scripting with, for example, the scripts in Unity. We can try making one in a minute if you want to see that. But yeah, I'm not entirely sure how to answer your question there.
Okay.
Because like it's just let me know what you're saying.
Yeah. So from what you're saying, so I think one thing that I heard from Rob Banton, who I talked to a while back, is that I guess sometimes there may be some sort of in-house tools that that you may need to do a certain type of effect or certain type of a certain type of task that maybe
Oh yeah, yeah.
there maybe doesn't exist. So does Wise come with a suite of different plugins, different effects as well?
Oh yeah,
Or
yeah. Okay, yeah, sure. We can take a look at that.
yeah.
Because like, okay, I'll share my screen again here, and let's take a look at Wise. And if you go like for every sound we have, let's take some sound here, like lava, for example, here. For every sound you have, you can add an effect. Oops. You can add an effect like this. And you can already see here there's already parametric EQ and a pitch shift, and you already have all these kind of default effects that you can put on.
I see.
But like you can also easily make your own effects. We just recently released a video because I'm on the Audio channel. I'm doing a 1 minute Wise series where I show a certain feature for about a minute.
Okay.
And there I show how to use, for example, Pure Data to make a plugin for Wise. So you can just like, you get it here below the others, and you just select that and you can use that for your own game. So it's definitely customizable.
Oh, that's cool. So you can actually use Pure Data to actually create something that you can use in Wise.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. But there's some limitations to the components you use. There's some like FFT, for example, components that you cannot specifically use. You can do all sorts of cool stuff with I'm a huge fan of Pure Data patches and that entire workflow. So yeah, you can definitely do that. But you can also do directly Wise plugins from C++. And I think actually also there's a video about this online with a guy called Joel on the Juice channel, I think, where he shows how you can take Juice plugins and make them into Wise plugins. But I think you'll need to see that video, and there's some limitations to how easy it is to port over. But yeah, you can definitely also script your own plugins.
Wow, that's really interesting. Yeah, so for people who may be unaware, Pure Data is an open source language that's actually a lot like Max MSP. It is essentially Max MSP, but an open source version without all of, and it's not quite as shiny as Max MSP, but it's an open source version. And so, do you just export it as a Pure Data project? And
well, actually, you need and that's a bit bad that there's a guy who made a super nice compiler for the Pure Data patches, but I think he left the company, so he doesn't update the package itself. But you can use his package still to convert the Pure Data package into to a Wise plugin.
I see.
If you just do a small edits in the plugin when you make it, and I show all that in the 1 minute Wise video, and so everybody can follow that as well. But there's of course some small things it is used to.
Yeah, really interesting. And also, so you said Wise plugins. So are these plugins different from VST plugins then?
Yeah, I'm not an expert on the Wise plugins.
Okay.
But let me just now I'll show the screen again. But on the website, I'll just bring out Audiokinetic's website here.
Okay.
You can see here that on the website, if you go to Learn Documentation and go to the Wise SDK, go down to Going Further, and there's a Create New Plugins. In there, you'll find a lot more information on how to make Wise plugins.
Okay.
And for example, the development tools you need to be able to do these things, and the entire workflow of it. Or else you can see that other video by Joel who shows how to make a Wise plugin first, and then he talks about how to take your Juice plugins and make them into Wise plugins.
Nice.
So yeah.
That's really interesting. And another question that I have. So can you use VST plugins as well, or do they have to be specifically Wise format plugins that you use in Wise?
I have no. I don't think you can use VST plugins.
Okay, so there's a specific Wise format that you have to use.
Yeah.
Okay.
You need to develop it, but yeah. Then again, I'm definitely not an expert on Wise plugins.
Uh-huh.
Last week I built my first one,
Uh-huh.
or tried at least. Yeah, I've been doing like other plugins in other like development things like MATLAB and such, but I haven't made one with Wise yet.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. So the Wise plugins, uh,
Yeah,
do they, because of course I would imagine that you would have to, when you're doing game audio, you have to support this wide variety, I guess, of different, like surround sound, stereo,
yeah,
mono, so
yeah.
on. So do the Wise plugins have different, do they have to be like surround sound plugins, or are they typically stereo plugins? How does that work?
Um, yeah, now you're asking some questions that I'm not entirely sure how to set
Yeah.
these things up, but they're like when you edit like these, they just took a look at, for example, I'll share my screen again. You can see Wise, just to get a sense of how you mix things in Wise.
Yeah.
Because if you can see in the top one here, even though we have the sounds from the actor mixer hierarchy and down here, and we have some music down here as well.
Yep.
You can see in the left side here, we also have the master mixer hierarchy. Here I've set up some different bus structure,
Okay.
and on these things, you can add, for example, a gain plugin here, and that
Yep.
will affect the whatever channel configuration you have on this one. So
I see.
if you've got like 5.1 or even use ambisonics and such, this effect will be using this effect
Oh,
on
wow.
those tracks.
Okay.
And the even cooler thing about this is that if you set to something like parent,
Uh-huh.
then it scales based on what the system you're using. So if you're using a stereo headset or a surround system, it just scales automatically to that. So
Okay. So that sounds like that would mean that each plugin would need to somehow scale to that setup somehow.
yeah,
That's interesting.
yeah.
I'd be interested to know more about that. So does Wise also handle the? So I guess Wise also handles the speaker placement as well. So you have a sound that you're hearing behind you. Is that
Mm.
something? Is that something that Wise handles, or is it the game engine that would handle that?
All those kind of positioning things is something that you use with, if you let's take a sound here like lava, and you go into the positioning tab, you can set all different kinds of settings for how your positioning of the sound should happen in the game.
Yeah.
But like in many cases, you would like create in Unity a game object like this one, and then you would hook up a sound to that one, and you would in Wise, you would set the to position and orientation, and then you would use an attenuation so that when the sound, I'll try to talk a bit slower about this, but when you have a sound that is all up close to you and you walk away from it, you'll see how this sound is getting lower based on this attenuation. So that is how you often would play sound, like generally would play sound in a 3D world, right? But you can also set the other settings, like you can set it to balance fade here, and you get some different positioning inside your speaker setup that you can directly set where you want the sound to be.
I see.
Oh, was I sharing the screen?
You weren't, but you described it really
Oh
well.
God.
Yeah. It's
Okay, so
okay.
take a look here.
Oh, now
You
it
see
brings it.
here.
It's another level now. Okay, great. Yeah. Go ahead.
So yeah, so this is up close when you're all up close to the sound source, and when you go away from it, you can see how you can design certain curves for this. You can not only as like a volume attenuation, but also like low passing and spread based on how close you are and so such.
Wow.
And certain curves for that, just pick a certain curve.
Yeah.
And for this one over here was when I set it to balance fade in the speaker panning, then I can decide specifically where the sound is coming from and such. And you can even do this gradually with like the speaker panning spatialization
Yeah.
thing here, where you just like, you can go from like, if you have a GTA, you can go from being inside a car where the music plays are all around you to
Yeah.
the sound staying in the car
Yeah.
when you move away from it. Right?
Wow, that's impressive. What's really impressive to me, I got to give a big shout out to all the game audio developers that are out there, because the array of skills that a person has to know just to be involved in that space must be huge, because not only do you have to know either C++ or C#, but you also have to know about the game engine itself, whether it's Unity or Unreal or another engine. You have to know about, and you're almost like a music producer as well, because
Yeah.
you're almost like a producer as well, because now you have to know about spatial audio. You have to know about
Yeah.
you have to know how to apply effects to
Yeah.
things. So wow, I've got the amount of skills. No wonder it seems like
It's steep learning curve sometimes. Yeah.
that is.
But the good thing is that like if you, for example, the spatial audio, we just did a live stream on spatial audio at AudioKinetic, and like if you just take it get a good introduction to how to do the things, it's actually not that hard to put it in and get something out of it. But of course, if you want to edit things and edit the details, you gotta know a lot of detail, like a lot of stuff about it. But you can easily set things up and get it started. And I think that is really empowering to many sound designers, that you can get so cool tools very easily without being an expert on it. So
Yeah, wow, that's really interesting. Pardon me. And another question. So I actually have a question from one of the people that's watching in. They say, I heard recently that interactive audio is not very prominent in lately. Do you agree with this opinion? Interactive music. I'm curious to know what they mean by that. So I guess that would be like a game like Dreams. I guess.
Well, I do not definitely actually not agree, but maybe it's because I'm in the business of utilizing audio in a very interactive way. I think there's a lot of games that have been doing a lot of cool interactive things with music, and I think with some tools, for example, like this, you can really do a lot of, for example, foreshadowing with your music setup. You can do a lot of influences based on if you make a good or bad decision. You can play certain instruments louder than others, right? You can very easily set these things up that I think that some games have really been showing how cool you can do this. And that's just about music, right? There's also many other things where the other games have really emphasized how far you can go with audio. That I think is super cool. We did some time ago. We did something called Wise tours. We traveled around with some folks from, for example, Blizzard and so on, and they talked about how they were using Wise in their production, and it's way beyond what I would imagine sometimes. That how the heck did you use that for that system, right? But I think that there's a lot of people that are really intuitive with this tool.
Amazing. We have another question from Amanda Niles. She says, I'm learning backwards from working on fixing late game problems during a AAA gig to learning how to initially implement them on base Unreal Engine 4. Is UE4? Is that Unreal or is that Unity Engine?
Yeah, that's Unreal, yeah.
Yeah, it's Unreal Engine 4. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Any tips? Do you have any tips for them?
So for Unreal, there's some variety of good resources. Recently I've also been putting out a few videos about how to integrate sounds into Unreal, or setting up switches and so on. So check out the.
Yeah, I was going to say, let me stop you there. Can you give people the link to what you're?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. What's the?
Actually, I have the stream next to, so maybe I should just post it right there.
Yeah.
But I'll 1 minute wise Unreal.
Yeah.
Actually, I'll just put the 1 minute wise playlist in there.
Yeah.
So they can get all the videos.
Yeah. So if in case you're listening, the name of the tutorial series is 1 Minute Wise. And yeah, if you and that's Wise with two W's, so it's WWISE.
Yeah.
So that's I hope that so yeah. I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No, that's all fine.
Yeah.
And in that playlist, you will find like it's some of the topics might be like more advanced than others, but the thing that the theme of the videos is just that you learn a specific feature very quickly, and then you can always pause and click in the description for learning more. There's a lot of links in the description, so you can just click there for learning more about something if you don't know what it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really just like showcasing a certain thing, even things that doesn't have anything to do with games itself, because you can also use Wise with many other things. For example, I made one recently with how you can use an Arduino sensor. The sensor is hooked up to an Arduino and control something in Wise. So you can make like, I even saw someone suggesting like making a theremin from that setup. So you can really do a lot of stuff that doesn't necessarily have to be related to games.
Can you walk me through a little? I know that might be difficult to do on the spot, but can you walk me through a little bit of how that would work? So you would have a sound, right? That would how would you actually would you synthesize the sounds on the spot, or how did you actually make the noise for the theremin?
Well, let's actually, if I just share my screen again, let's remember to do that. Like when you're in Wise, you can do all sorts of like different. I will start by putting the sound inside of Wise. Say we got this lava, and it's just boiling away here, and we've set it to loop in the middle here, so it's always playing. And based on that, you can like set up RTPCs that you control from the Arduino, for example, through some MIDI routing, for example, routing it to Wise through MIDI.
I see.
And from that, you could like set up like voice volume here to let's just take the time of day here. And you can see, no, let's take something more apparent, like let's take a low pass or something like that. And you can see when I play the sound and I change the parameter, let's change the end here. Oh, it's the opposite way, like this. Do it a bit drastically. Can you hear that?
Yeah.
So it's getting more low pass based on what you do. In that sense, this you could also do with like pitch, for example. So that is the way you set most of these kind of things up, and you can either do that by hooking up directly to the Wise authoring, if you have the Wise authoring there, but you can also have the sound engine integrated somehow in your system, Unity, for example, or app or whatever, and then you control that through these RTPCs that I just showed you. That is really some parameter control that we a way of hooking up your product to Wise.
Wow, that's really interesting. And another question that I have is, how do you handle linear time? So when you have, let's say, a set of instruments, or for instance, with a scene where, let's say you're just walking, you're playing some sort of RPG, you're walking in the woods, and then you spot a monster, and then the music starts, because you have to be ready, like you were saying, at any moment for events to change. How do you handle that with Wise?
So it's gonna be a lot of things now. I hope everyone is just posting questions if this goes too fast. But we go into we have a different layout where we can look at something like music.
Yeah.
And I'll just open up the music for this sample. You can see here. Look, if you no, because I didn't share the screen, did I? Now you should be able to look at my screen. And you can see here in the bottom, you have like, this is the different layers of the music here in the dungeon.
Okay.
So you can see when I press play. And okay, so this is how you would maybe construct your music with different layers, and some of them having like different conditions, so they not always play, but randomly play, and so on. But in this case, for example, you can see that one thing you could do is like use the event to post this music. whenever you get close to it.
Mm.
And here I have this, just because we're here, yeah, we can see that I have some tag here that's it's called spawn enemies, and that calls back to the game engine and it tells, hey, this is where you're supposed to spawn the enemies. But if I want to change something, like say I want to take this music here and change it from one theme to another, I use something called states. So if I just play the music here, and it's in nowhere land, I can go to the desert, for example. And all this, like if you line it up correctly and such, you can do it on rhythm. So and these transitions is all things you can edit inside your Wwise authoring. So you can make specific transitions for, like, from going from a certain state to another state and so on. So it's really, you can really fine tune all these settings.
Amazing. We have a question from Nick. He says, "Hi Mads, I'm curious if it's possible to get real-time analysis such as RMS or an FFT out of Wwise when he's working in Unity or Unreal."
Yeah, that I cannot answer. Because like what you could do is, like he names something like, for example, FFT, but the thing that you could do with like getting these kind of information out of Wwise is you could hook on a meter. For example, if you have the ambient bus here, you can add a meter, Wwise meter like this.
I can't see.
And you can do something like, for example, sidechaining with this kind of effect, and you can control some parameters you can read from the game. But this is based on, for example, volume. It's not based on the frequency spectrum that he's probably referring to, right?
Yeah, that's right. Okay. We have a question from Deep Flower asking, what are the licensing solutions for nonprofit projects that require more than 500 sounds?
Yeah. So for licensing, I think the safest that I can say is that go seek out either write to Audiokinetic or ping a guy called Mike on Twitter, which is our person of sales. That he's really quick responsive and really nice to talk with, even with smaller projects that like, how can we make a solution that, because I don't have the economy to do these kind of things, to reach out to him, and I'm sure you'll find a good solution for that. Other than that, I hope the website itself will be satisfactory. If you just go to the webpage and get Wwise and then go to pricing.
Okay.
I'll share this screen again.
Yeah.
So you can see. So I went into get Wwise and then pricing. You can see there's all these different this different table of how the different pricing could be.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, you can talk to us, so it's not something that, like, these things we want to find a good solution for you as well. So please reach out if you have any things about this. I think it's more valid to give a evaluative, if you talk to Mike about this and you can kind of explain your project, it's much better for him to give an example of what would this cost. So instead of having too many standards, it's much better to just reach out and explain your project.
Great. That sounds great. And I'd like to know more about what you do at Audiokinetic. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you specifically do?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So I sometimes I have a bit hard time explaining what I do, because I don't just do one thing. I do a lot of things. I kind of glue things up at Audiokinetic. So for example, I make these 1 minute Wwise videos, which makes me is a good excuse for all the time, like touching a new topic where I look into this. How can I explain this topic the best? My title at Audiokinetic is called integrations educator and content creator, but it really is like there's a lot more things I do with like doing things up and looking at audio QA, see if everybody has gotten their answer applied there, doing live streams like these, for example, and trying to communicate things and get try to get a hold on what is the current problems of developers out there, and because I started out as a kind of game developer and then built on some audio things based on my music background. Um, I'm I'm also an enthusiast. Like I know the rhythm of like what you could do for like for example coding in Unity and how you would set all the other things up like graphics and such. So I try to create a nice bond between the Unity the developers themselves and um, how you would talk to these audio features we have in Wise and such.
That's interesting. So you're almost like a developer advocate. That's what we would call it
Yeah,
in the
it seems,
developer
yeah,
world.
yeah, yeah,
Like a liaison between what's happening with Audio Kinetic and Wise and the people that are actually using
yeah.
it. Would
Yeah,
that
and
be
I think
accurate?
like I like that is like one of my primary reasons for example, also working at Autokinetic is that like everybody at Autokinetic is super nice and like whenever I have some problem or I there's something I don't understand with something, I've never been rejected in any way. I always like they come to me as kind as they are and try to help me as much as possible and even like stretch out like some too much sometimes that I feel like I'm disturbing. And like I think that like I'm working with the best colleagues that I can, and like so so I'm really in a good position. I feel like I'm fortunate to be in a position where I can really learn a lot of stuff, and I have a lot of good friends at Montreal, and
That's
yeah,
amazing. We have a question from Shykot who's
yeah.
asking if Wise is commonly used for VR and AR applications in addition to game audio. And I guess that can kind of come into one of my own questions, which
Hmm.
is what else can Wise be used for aside from game applications?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Actually, let's. And I've done this a couple of times now. I'll share my screen again like this. So you can see here that on our webpage, you can see that we have like Discover, and then you have for Wise for R, VR, MR, or automotive and games and simulation and LBE. So there's really a lot of different purposes you can use it for. But what I think is interesting is that like you don't need to necessarily need to put it into these categories. Like Wise is a sound engine, and whatever you want to use it for, you can use it for. Um, and you just need to call like set up the sound engine some way with your product and have your Wise authoring set up there, and they call the things back and forth. So they like the possibilities are really limitless. And for example, like something that is I guess will be coming up in the future is something like automotive. I don't know much about how to set that up with a car, right? But the thing is that this is also possible with the Wise authoring. So yeah, you can literally use it for anything. Um,
Wow, that's amazing.
but there's of course there's some differences in between whether like how much effort you need to do in order to set it up. For example, with Unity and Unreal, where we deliver some integrations for, it's super easy. Like it's actually a double click thing you need to do. You need to go into the launcher and you need to click integrate into this one, and that's about it,
Yeah.
right? So for those kind of things, we try to do it easy because they are kind of widespread used things. But and for other other engines that you might use for something else, you might have to do some other hookups or start the sound engine and such. But like all of these informations is in the documentation on our website, so you can really hook it up to anything.
That sounds cool. And um, I had a question. I just forgot what it was.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, there's
So,
someone talking about the Soundcast as well. The
yeah,
Soundcast is also a pretty cool thing that we should probably also
yeah.
just quickly touch on for some that wants to, because like so, it's not always that you got the game running,
Mm,
and you might want to try out some sounds and such with your collection of sounds in Wise. So what
mm,
we've got is that I'll go back to the design layout. We got something called a Soundcaster here,
mm.
where you can make a session. I'll just make a new one. Yep. And I can drag in some sounds like lava, and I can drag in some water. And let's take some player melee impact here. And I can just play them like this, and attack to get a sense of how it sounds in the collection of it, so like how the assembly of sounds would sound, and change the different settings here. For it's gonna be a hammer this time. And it's not gonna be, it's gonna be grass. So so this is really, you can really work a long time in Wise without at all touching the game itself. So
Wow.
as long as like in many game productions, you could also the the, the you need to set up, of course, some hooks that could like call the different events and so on. But if you plan it out right and you have a good like naming conventions with what you need to have in the game, and you know exactly, you can actually just let the rest of the development like in a kind of way run their goal while you just develop in Wise,
Mm,
because you got the event. Which if you just create the events here, you can
mm,
create empty events for sounds that you are going to use later on.
mm.
And then you can just play around with it. And once they are ready to test out some audio, then you can build the sound banks and try it out.
Wow.
So it's yeah, you can really take this on a journey, and then come back to the studio whenever they're ready to do work through with it, the audio as well.
Amazing. I remember my question now. Can you tell
Ah,
us a little bit more about the WISE certification program, what that's about, what that involves,
oh
and
yeah,
what you expect to get out of it?
yeah, definitely. So yeah, I'll just share again just so you can see the website when I'm. So on our webpage, we got this Learn and Learn Wise. And in here, we've got 4 certificates right now, or courses, that each of them has some different topics. So one thing I want to mention before we talk about them is that all of these courses, you can just head in there and do them. You don't need to pay anything at all until you gotta take the exam. And once you take the exam, like that, there's a fee for that. But all these kind of learning resources, there's no constraint on you learning them. So you can head in here, get certified, and then just read through the different materials. They are all accessible.
Amazing.
Um, but there's like the 4 different kinds. There's the Wise 101, which is the fundamentals of Wise. So you have all sorts of like how to put a sound in your Wise project, and how to hook that up to a game we have in our launcher as well. And like all the basic stuff of using Wise. So once you've done that, you can definitely work with Wise on some things.
Yeah.
And the next one here, 250 or 201, is the interactive music. That's a focus on how you can interact with the music or make the music interactive. Like for example, the things I showed you before, how to set up these kind of different containers for states and so on, and how what kind of like what you can do with all these kind of different interactions, and how unlimited it is. This one is that's the first code course I wrote, which is the performance optimization in mobile considerations. It's the one of the more advanced ones, where we talk about, for example, how you work with your voices when you have, like, say you have 50 voices playing at the same time. How do you kind of control which ones are the important ones and not? For example, let me actually show you something quickly here with Wise next to Unity. If I just play here and I'll hook up the Wise authoring, I go to the top here and choose my build that is running. and the game runs here on the right side. We got something called a profiler, where you can get all sorts of different information. You can even see here in the bottom you got like CPU usage. You got the amount of sounds playing at the same time. You can even take, like, let's say we got water. We search for that here. We can see the exact pipeline for the sound going through the audio buses all the way up to the output of the system, and that's some of the things that we will be touching on these optimizations. But there's a bit about it in the Wwise 101 as well. And then lastly, there's the course about the Wwise Unity integration, which is the second course I wrote. It basically just takes you through all the different components and how you can utilize that in your game. And it's based on it's based on if you're a sound designer and you don't know anything about code, so you want to move into Unity and try out these components and actually also write some scripts, but not in the sense that we go into the specifics of what is a Boolean and what is like floats and all these kind of properties, but we just show you how it's done, and you can get a feeling of, okay, so this code line line of code will actually get some different possibilities out of from doing these things, and maybe that can spike some motivation for learning about how to script.
Amazing. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but all of it's free except for the exam. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, when you go into get certified here, and all of these lessons, you can see that if I start a lesson here, I can go through all the different. Oh, yeah, I didn't.
Yeah, gotta share your screen.
That was what you were saying to
me.
Okay, so in the certification homepage here, I go back. And you can see I'm on Wwise 101. When you go into something like, say, lesson 1 here, you can see all the different chapters we go through, importing a sound and so on. And at the bottom of a lesson, let's take the next one. You can, I didn't log in this time, but you can start a quiz. So you do some different questions based on this lesson. And once you've done all of these different, answered all of these quizzes, you can take the exam, which is also a collection of different questions and so on, but just a verification of that. Yeah.
And by the way, you can get a discount on the certification where you take the exam and you actually get certified in Wwise with the discount code that I've put in the live chat, and I'll also put it in the video description as well. So this is great. I think this seems like a good time for us to wrap up. Is there anything else that you'd like to show us that you can do with Wwise, or
actually, maybe I should also just mention that before, if you want to learn more about this, we've got these resources on the page, but we also got under the community. I'll share again the screen like this. Under the community, we got a Q&A where there's a lot of different questions based on, some want to have problems and want to get out of this with some help from others, and in there you can really learn a lot. Like I'd say a lot of what I've learned is from the original Q&A, because this exemplifies a clear problem that somebody has. And you work with, okay, so what can I do to solve this problem? And I kind of have the same energy with the 1 Minute Wwise videos also, that I can kind of take an example of something like a problem that we have, and now I want to find a solution for that problem, because I think it's really authentic compared to how you work with it. But other than that, we can talk about Wwise, we can talk about the integration, whatever you want to do. But one of the things we added recently, I guess we can talk about is
I was going to say, as one question that I had was, as a
Okay,
person
cool.
that communicates a lot with the engine, the game engine developers, what
Yeah.
would you say are some of the things that are on the forefront of what these developers are requesting now, and what's the current trend of where you see things going for game audio?
Hmm. Well, I think that some of the like the I think we're getting into a time where like audio is getting much more interesting
Mm,
in a way that you are not in any way limited by, for example, performance anymore. Like back in the day, you had to specify how much memory you could use for a certain game, and that was what you had were constrained in between, and you had to convert your sounds into specific format in order to have it in memory and such. But these days, right, you have a lot more to do with it, a lot more performance to do,
mm,
and even like there's a lot of technologies that takes it on like further.
mm,
Um, so I think that like what I think is gonna be the future of game audio maybe is also like empowering these tools of spatial audio, or empowering of like how you can represent sound in a cooler way with your setup, and maybe also something like HRTF. You probably know what that is, right?
yeah, yeah,
But some things like these kind of also you can get a plugin for that for Wise as well.
nice.
Uh, but but I think that these methods will be utilized more in games
Mm,
because we like in a sense I see the development, like the process of game audio getting into focusing on more accessibility for like if the sound, the advanced sound being more accessible to someone who is not necessarily an expert on it.
mm,
So I think that is really cool.
yeah,
But that also like introduces a lot of education in it, and a lot of yeah
absolutely.
demonstrations and such.
That's
So
great. Um, that's great. It seems like everybody's had their questions answered. Sorry about my dog if you hear her.
yeah,
Uh, she does this all every
I'm
live
fine.
stream. So, is there anything else you'd like to cover before we wrap up?
No, I think I think that we should also, in a sense, start is slow with
Yeah,
these kind of things.
yeah,
I think that there's a lot you can do with Wise,
yeah.
and like any other thing, that when you got a lot of possibilities, gotta like look at it and evaluate: is this how do I want to proceed with these things?
Mm,
And I can only like direct people towards the educational stuff we have on our Audicator website, because we have a lot of documentation on how to get started with, and we also do have a lot of samples that you can try out. Like the Wise Venture game that I was part of making is a fully fledged Unity product you can download and like change every like graphical component and so on. So there's really a lot of resources for just play around with in there.
mm,
But you gotta take it slow. You gotta take one step at a time, and
yeah,
because game audio is a advanced thing
yeah.
in the end.
Yeah, it's
So,
huge, and like I
yeah.
said, big shout out to all the game audio developers that are out there. I'm really impressed with the array of skills that somebody needs to know in order to be a
Yeah,
real game audio
yeah.
developer. Wow, amazing. Yes, well, once again, be sure to check out audiokinetic.com, and this has the lessons that you can take for Wise, and also the forum and the community. And also be sure to check out Mass's 1 Minute Wise tutorials. That's right here on YouTube. And with that, Mass, thank you so much for all your time. This is
A
really,
pleasure.
yeah, this has
Yeah.
been, I really feel like I have a better understanding of what
Oh,
a
that's
game
cool.
audio developer does now. So, yeah, thank you
That's
very
all
much for
good.
your
Or
time.
else just reach out to us, and like I said, everybody at Orkinex is nice, and a kind person to meet. So reach out to us if there's any questions or anything you really like to learn about Wise.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you once again, and we're signing off. And once again, be sure to join our audio programmer community at theaudioprogrammer.com/community, and we will see you soon.